Reborn back to the day before the flood apocalypse. I didn't stockpile food, didn't build a shelter, and definitely didn't spend all my savings to buy an aircraft carrier, because I simply had no money. But luckily, I have a god-tier fishing rod that never comes back empty-handed. As long as I fish, I can infinitely level up and catch all things. Recalling yesterday or maybe the day before, the flood submerged the 15-story-old building under my feet. I dismantled every usable resource in my home, made a simple wooden raft, and began sailing. At this time, my girlfriend Chu Xin sent a message, "Ah, fan. I'm so scared. My house is about to be submerged. Come quickly to pick me up." A cold smile curved up at the corner of my mouth. Without any hesitation, I typed back directly, "Don't be afraid. Sin, you must block the door tightly. Don't act on your own. I will definitely rush over to save you as soon as possible." After saying that, I turned off the satellite network, put the phone properly into a waterproof bag, and stuffed it into my backpack. Save you like hell, I will. In my past life, it was this woman and my good bro Chenze, who personally fed me to a greedy megalodon. Taking a deep breath, I checked the scarce resources in my backpack. It's time to cast the first line. With an excited heart, I immediately cast the fishing rod in my hand. But after fishing for nearly an hour, there wasn't even a single movement in the water. Just as I planned to lift the rod and reel in the line, the tip of the fishing rod was suddenly pulled down hard by a massive force. I instantly tensed my muscles and frantically turned the fishing reel to pull in the line. The force in the water was immense, almost pulling me into the water. Clenching my teeth, I used the momentum to lift the rod. The next second, a red shadow burst out from the water surface. Fishing successful. Congratulations, you have obtained a pack of latiao. Obtained 1 proficiency point. The corner of my eye twitched, feeling that this was a bit ridiculous. It really proved that saying in the fishing community, old anglers can catch anything except fish. Moreover, just casting once just now cost me 10 stamina points. Then at most, I can only fish 10 times every day. At the current speed, it would take at least 12 days to level up. I knew clearly in my heart that I simply had no time to develop, because 7 days later, the marine life will usher in their first mutation. By then, they will become extremely aggressive and possess a certain amount of intelligence. Thinking up to this point, I quickly continued to recast. A moment later, on the float in the distance, a faint golden light flickered indistinctly. Could it be a golden legendary item? I immediately exerted power and lifted the rod upward. The fishing reel spun rapidly, even splashing out scalding sparks, biting down hard on my back teeth. I took advantage of the momentum to lean back and fall to the ground, using my entire body weight to press down on that fishing rod, which had already bent into a semicircle. But even though I exerted all my strength, the fishing reel couldn't turn even a fraction of an inch. At this time, the wooden raft also began to shake violently, and water kept rushing in over the edges of the structure. After a period of stalemate, my body already showed signs of collapsing from exhaustion. At this moment, a flash of inspiration suddenly came to me. Since I couldn't outpull it, wouldn't it work if I just wore out its strength instead? No sooner said than done. I immediately used every ounce of my strength to wedge and secure the fishing rod into a gap in the wooden raft, while standing up to grip the front end of the fishing rod to use as a rudder. It happened to be rushing toward the direction of the pier, and in the beginning, that was exactly where I had found the life-saving fishing boat. Sure enough, this pulling force instantly drove the wooden raft to drift along. As for me, I stood on the wooden raft cruising wildly like surfing. This scene instantly stunned the survivors who were huddling on the top floors. But I had absolutely no time to care about any of this, because in order to prevent myself from capsizing, I had already been pulled by the thing underwater to circle around the wide sea area of the pier for dozens of laps. The thing underwater gradually lost its strength, and seeing the right timing, I immediately tightened the fishing line. The next second, a burst of golden light exploded on the water surface, and a dark purple ring flashing with colorful light clattered onto the wooden raft. Fishing successful. Obtained hidden item space ring, rarity ability tier. The space capacity of the ring evolves along with the growth of the host's mental stats. Currently, it can only store system outputs and fished resources. It actually really is a golden legendary. I collapsed on the wooden raft, panting heavily, with a thought. I instantly stored the god-tier fishing rod and the latiao into the small space, which was a full 5 cubic meters. Right after, with tears welling up in my eyes, I closed my eyes and began to drift. At the same time, inside the high-end residential complex of Fengjiang Garden, Chu Xin was anxiously playing with her phone, still waiting for the news of me coming to the rescue. At this time, Chenze walked out and put his arm around Chu Xin's slender waist. "Don't worry, he loves you so much. He will come even if he dies." Chu Xin frowned slightly, always feeling that something was a bit off about this matter. Lu Fan must be rowing the boat as hard as a dog right now. When he arrives, I will kick him off the boat and go get my uncle's yacht to rescue you guys. On the sofa, holding a toy poodle, second aunt and second uncle heard the conversation and quickly leaned over. "Oh, Xiaoze is so sensible. Our Zinner meeting you is simply a blessing for our Chu family. You're so much better than that trash Lu Fan." Listening to the malicious flattery of the two, Chenze smiled and nodded in agreement, but a hint of coldness flashed across the depths of his eyes, and right after his hands unconsciously reached out toward Chu Xin. Seeing this, second uncle and second aunt awkwardly turned their heads away, pretending to play with the dog, not daring to disrupt them in the slightest. Meanwhile, on the other side, after resting for an hour, I continued to start fishing, because it would get dark in 4 or 5 hours, and the ocean at night would become incomparably cold. As a result, the first cast brought up a pack of cigarettes. The second cast was a meat cleaver. Not until the fourth cast did I notice that a faint green light was flickering on the float. My pupils shrunk. First, I loosened the drag device on the reel, while swinging the fishing rod left and right, to disrupt the swimming rhythm of the thing inside, holding my breath. The next second, the rocker arm spun rapidly, and all of a sudden a square brown shadow burst out from the water. Fishing successful. Obtained hidden item basic workbench. Rarity excellent tier. Used for crafting and synthesizing blueprints. Has a one-time daily. Basic dismantling function which must be bound to a vehicle to use. The blueprint function is limited only to survival items of excellent quality or below. Additionally, the dismantling function refreshes every day at 12 o'clock. Looking at this wooden raft under my feet that could fall apart at any moment, I didn't have any hesitation. Kneeling on one knee in the center of the wooden raft, I firmly pressed the workbench with both hands against the thickest connection point of the raft structure. Bind the next instant, the workbench suddenly burst into a faint golden light curtain, instantly sweeping across the entire wooden raft. Every single wooden board and rope knot seemed to be locked by some kind of power into an indestructible whole. And the workbench has another great use, which is the dismantling function. I quickly searched through my resource bag and took out 4 heat packs, since it can dismantle. Let's see if I can turn trash into treasure. I stuffed the heat packs into the slot of the workbench, accompanied by a ball of light rising and fading away. A palm-sized pitch-black chunk appeared in the slot. Dismantling complete. Obtained a low-purity iron-carbon mixture material. It will release 65 degrees Celsius of heat after coming into contact with air. It will not dilute when meeting water. Duration is around 12 hours. It is the basic material for making thermal equipment, and can also be used for emergency heating. Holy crap, this is awesome. My eyes lit up. This is simply a portable little stove. I have to rely on it to save my life tonight. But just as I stored it into my space ring, dark clouds actually pressed down heavily over the sky. My face instantly turned pale. In my past life, the weather clearly cleared up for a full 5 days after the rain stopped. Is someone singing the little yellow flower of the story? The premonition of a heavy downpour striking again instantly made me extremely anxious. Once it happens, I will lose body temperature rapidly, and it's highly possible I'll freeze to death tonight. The next second, a sudden clap of thunder exploded violently, and the heavy rain carrying giant waves instantly lashed toward me. My entire body was thrown straight out, smacking hard into the freezing, bone-chilling seawater. A freezing sensation of suffocation crept all over my body. Enduring the sharp pain in my lungs, I desperately swam upward. When I grabbed onto the edge of the wooden raft, I used the last ounce of my strength to climb back up, beginning to welcome the baptism of the next wave of giant breakers. Don't know how much time passed, but the heavy rain finally turned into a sharp drizzle. However, the rapid drop in body temperature already made my consciousness start to blur at this moment. I was trembling, planning to take out that chunk of iron-carbon mixture from my space ring to save my life. But a beam of blinding searchlight suddenly lit up before my eyes, followed right after by a low rumble of an engine coming over. I managed to raise my head with difficulty, looking against the light. That worn-out little fishing boat from my memory was currently cutting through the dark water and slowly sailing toward me. After the fishing boat parked beside the wooden raft, a stocky middle-aged man carried me on his back, bringing me onto the fishing boat instead. At the same time he shouted, "Bring this small wooden raft up later. We can chop it up to use as firewood." A moment later I came to a warm and dry rest area. At this time, girl with bronze skin grumbled, "Dad, it's so dangerous outside and it's still raining. Why do you insist on saving him?" The man smiled gently, placing me on the floor, and then swiftly helped me strip off my soaked coat. Although Zhang Xiaomin complained with her mouth, she still picked up the little stove that wasn't considered very warm and threw it right in front of me. "Kid, my dad saved you out of the goodness of his heart. I'm warning you not to have any bad ideas. Otherwise, I'll kick you right down to feed the fish with one foot." I strained to raise my eyelids and glanced at her. She's a beauty, all right. But with this body of lean muscles, she's probably trained in martial arts. Can't afford to mess with her. Definitely can't afford to mess with her. As the two went out the door, with a thought, I took out that chunk of iron carbon, mixture from my spacer ring for warmth. Once I regained my senses, I immediately perked up my ears, because a strange thumping sound came from outside the door. I saw that under the awning of the outside deck. A blonde guy weighing 200 pounds was swinging a fire axe, unleashing crazy attacks on my wooden raft. "Is this damn thing made of iron? I've been chopping for ages and can't even dent it." Zhuangniu threw away the axe, plonking his butt down on the deck and quitting the job. Seeing that he stopped working, the tall and skinny blonde guy beside him, Chen Yang, directly kicked him. "You eat so much meat every day for nothing. You can't even chop through a broken wooden raft." Just at this moment, Zhang Weiguo's voice came over, "Why do you two look so awful?" The two let out a bitter laugh and pointed right at the wooden raft. "Uncle Zhang, this thing is bizarrely hard. The axe can't chop through it at all." Although Zhang Weiguo was a bit puzzled, he still gestured for the two to go rest first. "The pier where the yacht is parked should be coming up soon, as you guys said. I'll call you when I find it." After saying that, he brought Zhang Xiaomin back into the cockpit, watching the Zhang family father and daughter walk away. Chen Yang shook the axe in his hand and let out a low, cold laugh. "Once we find the yacht, you father and daughter can just wait to feed the fish." Zhuangniu scrambled up instantly, his expression terrified. "Brother Chen, are we really going to kill people? I'm scared of going to prison." Chen Yang backhanded him with a slap. "You pig brain. The whole world is flooded. What kind of prison is there to go to?" At the same time, inside the rest area, you held your dizzy head, your whole body aching all over. After checking the system panel, sure enough, you found that you already caught a moderate cold. In the apocalypse, where medicine and supplies are scarce, a severe cold can sometimes be more fatal than natural disasters. However, just as you moved toward the door connected to the cockpit to look for water, the conversation inside instantly gave you a jolt. Zhang Xiaomin said hesitantly, "Those two blonde guys? I always feel like they aren't good people. Are we really going to help them find the yacht?" Zhang Weiguo patted Zhang Xiaomin's shoulder. "Don't worry, kid. Once we find the yacht, we'll borrow some fuel and head straight over to the Shihuan Mountains in the west. I heard someone has set up a temporary stronghold there. It is the only way to survive." Standing outside the door, your pupils shrunk at this. In my past life, if I remembered correctly, that place was within a 500-mile radius, the only safe official base. It was just a pity that in my past life I was dragged down by that idiot Chenze, who insisted on looking for this broken yacht at sea, missing the best time to relocate, which ultimately made me a sacrificial lamb for their escape. Just as I was thinking up to this point, Zhang Xiaomin suddenly turned the doorknob. The next moment, I fell straight to the ground. I looked at the two awkwardly, straining to speak. Is there any water?" Zhang Weiguo frowned, walking forward to feel my forehead. The next moment, he jumped up. "It's actually this hot. Girl, go boil some hot water." As soon as Zhang Xiaomin left, he pulled open the drawer beside him, and then fished out a medicine box with 999 written on it. You should know that in this apocalypse where civilization has collapsed, a single pill is enough to make two adult men fight with their lives, and can even exchange for the all-night service of a former goddess. Zhang Weiguo popped out a pill and handed it into my hand. It was warm and very touching. "This thing is precious and I don't have many left either. Take one and see." looking at the capsule in the palm of my hand. My eyes were filled with complex emotions. Zhang Weiguo was a good person, but a pity that in the apocalypse, good people usually die the fastest. However, just when I finished the medicine and was about to thank him, a sudden cry of surprise came from outside the door. "Uncle Zhang! Stop the boat quickly, we see the yacht." Hearing this, Zhang Weiguo handed the rudder over to his daughter, who rushed over, and then walked out of the cockpit leaning against the front of the boat. They quickly approached the yacht, but he didn't know that what happened next almost cost him his life. Chen Yang gave Zhongniu a look, following Zhang Weiguo to jump onto the yacht to investigate. They found that the fuel gauge was full, and there were no problems inside the yacht either. At this time, Zhang Weiguo felt the atmosphere wasn't right. "Xiao Chen, since we've found the fishing boat, then the fuel borrowing we agreed on before shouldn't be a problem, right?" Chen Yang clapped the dust off his hands, grinned, and said, "No problem. Since Uncle Zhang spoke up, how could it not be okay?" Right after he turned back to the fishing boat to get tools. As for Zhang Weiguo, he habitually bowed his head to sort out the hose. But the next second, he was directly knocked over by a strike from a blunt stick. His whole body plunged straight into the puddle on the deck, his body twitching twice before stopping completely. Chen Yang threw away the wooden stick. Shaking his hand, which had gone numb from the impact, Zhongniu picked up the nylon rope prepared long ago and tied the semi-conscious Zhang Weiguo's hands behind his back. Suddenly, the door of the cockpit opened. Zhang Xiaomin saw her father fallen on the ground with one glance. Without even thinking, she directly grabbed the fire axe by the door and charged over. But Chen Yang reacted extremely fast, grabbing Zhang Weiguo's hair with one hand, and then holding a folding knife right against his carotid artery. Zhang Xiaomin's axe was held mid-air, her eyes completely red. "Are you guys beasts? Without my dad, you guys would have fallen into the sea to feed the fish." Chen Yang spat, his expression disdainful. "I didn't beg you guys to save us. Don't use this kind of moral kidnapping on me. Throw the axe away and kneel down." Zhang Xiaomin could only kneel down on the ground in despair. The next second, Zhuangniu took the opportunity to tie her up as well, and then rubbed his hands together on the side, his face full of lewdness. "The yacht is this big. The two of us just happen to lack a woman." Zhang Weiguo's eyes were nearly splitting from rage, struggling desperately, but he was kicked hard by Chen Yang. "Tell me the password to that safe containing the resources, and I might consider letting your daughter live." But Zhang Weiguo closed his eyes and didn't utter a single sound, knowing his daughter had fallen into their hands. Even if she didn't die now, she would wish she were dead in the future. Seeing this, Chen Yang stood up, his eyes malicious. "Fatty, go drag that sick ghost out." A moment later, with a deathly pale face, I was dragged out. Chen Yang threw the folding knife to Zhuangniu, cut his head off, and let Uncle Zhang see what kind of end his daughter will face later. Zhuangniu let out a strange cry to bolster his courage. The next second, he raised the knife and charged toward you. But because the deck was too slippery, his whole body actually heavily crashed and pressed right on top of you. After a few seconds passed, he actually didn't move at all. Chen Yang walked over, cursing, raising his foot to kick Zhuangniu's butt. But there was still no reaction at all. However, right at the instant, Chen Yang flipped the body over. Suddenly, a flash of cold light abruptly shot out from underneath the fat corpse. The sharp blade sliced across. Chen Yang ducked his head sharply, and the next moment, holding his head and screaming in pain, he tumbled backward on the puddle on the ground. There was suddenly an extra bloody ear. Supporting yourself on your knees, you stood up shakingly. Ignoring Chen Yang's howling and crying, you raised the cleaver and chopped toward Chen Yang's neck. But suddenly, a massive side wave slammed hard against the ship's hull. Already weak, my feet slipped, and I actually fell straight onto the deck, while the meat cleaver flew out of my hand and slid right over to Chen Yang's feet. The situation also reversed instantly along with this. Chen Yang froze for a second, and while joy exploded in his eyes, he scrambled and lunged over, grabbing that meat cleaver with one hand, and roared grimly, "Kid, go to hell!" Zhang Xiaomin immediately roared, warning Lu Fan to be careful. However, right at the instant, the blade came down. Chen Yang suddenly felt his arm lighten. The meat cleaver, originally gripped in his hand, actually vanished into thin air, turning into a cloud of air. Chen Yang maintained his chopping posture, his eyeballs almost popping out of their sockets, before his slow brain could react. My originally empty left hand abruptly reached backward, grabbing nothingness, and the meat cleaver appeared in my hand again without any warning. As I swung it back with an upward slash, the sharp blade directly pierced through Chen Yang's entire abdominal cavity. Expressionless, I pulled out the knife, forcing myself to endure the headache. I was about to deliver a finishing blow on Chen Yang. Chen Yang suddenly bared a mouthful of blood, roaring, "Since I can't live, then let's die together." The next moment he pulled out a detonator from his chest and pressed it down hard. That was a homemade bomb used for blasting fish, which had been stealthily taped beside the fuel tank by Zhuang Niu while investigating the yacht earlier. My pupils shrunk tightly, and the movements in my hands speeded up, just as I slashed and crushed Chen Yang's throat. A scorching heat wave accompanied by a roaring blast. A wave of scorching heat accompanied the roaring sound, erupted from the bottom of the hull, blowing the cockpit straight into the sky. I was also sent flying by the blast wave, rolling twice, before crashing straight onto the ground. The soaring flames ignited the leaked diesel, engulfing half of the deck into a sea of fire. The ship began to tilt violently as it took on water. Disregarding my pain, I fished a bunch of keys out of Chen Yang's pants pocket, stumbled and rushed toward the bow, and sliced open the ropes binding the Zhang family father and daughter. "Go. Get on the yacht quickly." Stumbling, the Zhang family father and daughter crossed over the gunwale and jumped onto that grayish-white yacht. Standing on the yacht's deck, Zhang Xiaomin anxiously reached her hand out toward me. "Lu Fan, get up here quickly. The fishing boat is about to sink." But standing in the middle of the flames, I shook my head, turning my gaze to aim at that wooden raft instead. A bold idea newly formed in my mind, looking toward Zhang Xiaomin. "What time is it now?" Zhang Xiaomin was stunned, asking for the time at a moment like this. 11:55. "Move it. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late," I muttered to myself, a glint of golden light flashing across my eyes. "There are still 5 minutes left. Next." I pulled out that pack of cigarettes fished up earlier from my pocket and threw it across a few meters, precisely landing it in Zhang Xiaomin's arms. "This pack of cigarettes should be enough for you guys to trade for quite a lot of supplies at the stronghold. Consider it my way of paying back your dad's favor. Sail west to the Jihuan Mountains stronghold and don't look back." After saying that, I turned around and stopped looking at her, dragging that exhausted body of mine instead. As I walked toward the wooden raft, looking at my resolute retreating figure, Zhang Xiaomin then looked at her weak-breathing father in her arms, stomped her foot hard, and ducked into the yacht's cockpit, carrying the two of them away as they vanished into the pitch-black, rainy night. As for me, I stood on the boat that was about to go under, silently counting down the time in my heart, at the very first second of entering the second day. Ding, today's dismantling attempts have been refreshed. I abruptly pressed my right hand onto the workbench beneath me, while my left hand tightly gripped the deck of the fishing boat that was about to sink. Dismantled the next moment. An incomparably blinding golden light erupted from the bottom of the workbench. The light spread rapidly along the deck, and the behemoth that was originally sinking suddenly froze mid-air, completely motionless. In this space where the laws of physics failed, the hull instantly began to disintegrate, and all matter turned into countless fine points of light, surging frantically into the core of the workbench. After a dozen or so minutes, the light faded away. That several-ton fishing boat on the sea surface had completely vanished. Losing their support, the corpses of Chen Yang and Zhuang Niu drifted away with the ocean waves like two trash bags. But I sat on the lonely little wooden raft, looking at the pile of refined materials floating above the workbench. Dismantling successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 20 pieces of survival tier treated wood planks, 10 pieces of survival tier construction iron plates, 5 pieces of survival tier reinforced glass, 2 excellent tier copper core coils, 50 liters of excellent tier diesel fuel, and 1 barrel of special components. A damaged fishing boat diesel engine that can be repaired. Looking at these things, I couldn't help but frown. Such a huge ship only dismantled into this little bit. However, under the system's prompts, I finally understood that it turned out the workbench's power was limited, so it had purified and condensed the materials with a thought. I stuffed all of them into my space ring in one go. Since my mental stats had reached 7 points, the corresponding space had also expanded to 7 cubic meters. At this time, the workbench vibrated once again, detected that the materials have met the requirements for the current vehicle's core. Upgrade. It can be upgraded to a level 1. Basic survival boat. Upgrade immediately. The headache brought by the fever made my vision a bit blurry. I hurriedly selected to upgrade. The next second, the materials inside the space ring flew out into thin air, instantly merging into the wooden raft beneath my feet. The entire wooden raft actually transformed into a steel wood boat filled with a rugged, industrial aesthetic. The half-iron, half-wood structure made it look like a miniature version of an amphibious armored vehicle. I couldn't wait to squeeze into the cockpit, and the world outside was instantly shut out, becoming quiet. Although the cockpit as a whole was crude, it was extremely dry and safe. Looking at this small world that belonged entirely to me, having experienced a double rebirth, my eyes actually felt a bit hot. In my past life, I worked like a dog on that fishing boat without a single complaint. Yet Chu Xin's family not only showed zero gratitude, but also took it all for granted, criticizing me in every possible way. But now, I have the dignity to survive in the apocalypse. Surrounded by warmth, I curled my body into a ball, and my consciousness gradually drifted into darkness. Early the next morning, I pushed open the door of the cockpit, licked my cracked lips, and my stomach also let out a rumbling growl. Looks like I absolutely have to cast a line now. Hopefully I can solve the problems of food and fresh water next. Meanwhile, at the exact same time, inside the high-end residential complex of Fengjiang Garden, Chu Xin tossed her phone onto the sofa in frustration. How annoying, it's completely dead. Looking at the only remaining half-pack of cookies on the table, she clutched her growling stomach, her eyes completely filled with resentment and envy. Is that bastard Lu Fan dead or something? How dare he not reply to my messages? Just as she finished speaking, second aunt and second uncle quietly dragged Chu Xin over to the corner of the kitchen, lowering their voices. Shinner, I think that Lu Fan kid really did drown to death. With the little food left in the house right now, that big guy Chenze eats as much in one meal as the three of us combined. If we keep dragging this out, everyone will starve to death. Hearing this, Chu Xin pulled a miserable face, but a fierce glint flashed across second aunt's eyes. I have an idea. That old couple next door has an inflatable raft in their house, the one they bought for their grandson to play in the water before. Have Chenze go snatch it over so he can take us and get out of here? Second uncle froze for a moment, not expecting his own woman to be this ruthless. Chu Xin pondered for a short moment, nodded her head, and right after walked into the bedroom. A few minutes later, having finished listening to Chu Xin's suggestion, Chenze walked into the living room and picked up the fruit knife on the side. It's doable. But that family next door also has a son who's almost 40 years old. He's quite big. I'm afraid I won't be able to handle it all by myself. Second uncle, you have to give me a hand. The two of them took out meat cleavers and crept to the neighbor's door, then found a crowbar to violently break open the apartment door. The middle-aged man swung a knife and roared, "What do you think you're doing? Get the hell out." Chenze let out a cold laugh, gripping the knife in his hand with a grim expression, and charged straight for the opponent's neck. He had trained in kickboxing for a few years, and his fighting style was extremely dirty. Before the middle-aged man could even react, a huge gash was sliced open on his neck. The old couple cried out and threw themselves into the fight to risk their lives. The scene instantly spun out of control. In the chaos, second uncle's thigh was stabbed by the old man right before he died. Chenze seized the opportunity and instantly finished off the two of them. Screaming in pain, second uncle collapsed to the floor, looking at the room full of tragic corpses. He was shaking all over. "Shoza, quick, give me a hand." Chenze flicked the blood droplets off the knife, panting heavily as he walked over, and then looked down at second uncle from above. "Second uncle, your wound is quite deep." "Yeah, hurry and take me back to bandage it up." Chenze squatted down, his voice terrifyingly calm. "If we bring you along, we have to split the food with you. And we even have to take care of you. This boat is only so big. You're already at this age and now you're a cripple. Don't drag us down." Second uncle's eyes widened. Before he even had time to beg for mercy, a sudden chill pierced right through his heart. Chenze was expressionless, twisting the handle of the knife inside second uncle's chest. "Once you're dead, it's all over." Saves everyone from getting exhausted. He didn't expect that killing someone for the second time would still feel this amazing. After a brief rest, Chenze found the inflatable raft, scavenging and emptying out all the resources in the house while he was at it. Finally, he threw second uncle's corpse out of the window into the flood below. After finishing all this, Chenze went back inside the room. Seeing that second uncle hadn't returned, Chu Xin and second aunt hurriedly questioned him. With reddened eyes, Chenze said, "That pack of bastards, oh, they were too ruthless." Second uncle was pushed out of the window by them in order to save me. Second aunt's eyes rolled back, and she burst into loud wails. Chu Xin was also so scared that she covered her mouth, her tears falling non-stop. Chenze wrapped his arm around Chu Xin, burying her head in his shoulder. Xin. Thankfully, my luck was good, and I made it back. Once I nurse my wounds for 2 days, we'll leave. I will definitely keep you alive. Chu Xin was moved beyond words, tightly hugging back this man who was covered in a bloody stench. Meanwhile, at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, I was sitting at the bow of the boat, enjoying the spoils of war that I had fished up in the morning from those 5 casts this morning. Besides the mineral water and beef jerky that sustained my survival, there was also a clean rubber tube, bundle of square timber, and a pack of quartz sand. Although they were all low-tier miscellaneous items of the survival tier, in the apocalypse, these resources were all good things that could be utilized. After another period of time, I seized the time to continue casting the line, as the float suddenly sank heavily. A green light bloomed. The item fished up actually made my breathing stop instantly. Fishing successful, obtained a Type 64 pistol. Rarity excellent tier, highly reliable. But the magazine capacity is only 7 rounds. In this apocalypse where order has collapsed, this is the absolute truth. This time I really struck absolute beginner's luck. Carefully storing it into the space ring, my confidence boosted immensely, and I continued to cast the line. After 2 hours had passed, on the 7th cast, I happily scored a survival tier windproof lighter. On the 8th cast, my luck took a turn, bringing up a survival tier vacuum compressed down duvet. I couldn't help but sigh with emotion. How can a kid cry every single day? How can a gotcha addict lose every single time? Time to restore the glory of the old anglers. Sure enough, on my 9th cast, which I did with full concentration, the long-awaited green light lit up on the float once again. Ha ha ha! Dropped the goods for daddy. Fishing successful. Obtained an excellent tier blueprint. Basic gravity type freshwater purifier. I slapped my thigh in excitement and immediately placed the blueprint on the workbench to check it. A crude device that can nonetheless save your dog life. Compared to the distillation method, the energy cost required is lower, and the produced fresh water is more stable. But due to the lack of electricity and a high-pressure pump, the process is so painfully slow that it will make you want to smash it. Staring at the workbench, you frowned slightly. The few secondary materials are actually fine, but getting the main material purely by fishing relies too much on RNG. In case I don't catch any fresh water during this period, I'll probably be a goner. I raised my head to look not far away. 200 meters ahead was a 30-story office building. There must be fish tanks or household water purification equipment inside the rooms. Dismantling a household RO reverse osmosis membrane filter element shouldn't be difficult. With a gun and a knife in hand, time to scavenge the building. But the exact instant I started the engine, the air instantly froze. A string of eye-catching red letters was marked on the workbench. Engine status severely damaged. Requires an excellent tier mechanical repair kit, or a same tier repair person to fix it. I slapped my forehead with one palm. Yesterday I was just too focused on the thrill of upgrading the hull, forgetting that this broken engine was busted. Next, I hurriedly took out a piece of square timber from the space ring, and then used the meat cleaver to temporarily fashion a wooden oar. Beginning to return to the state of a primitive man, I aimed toward that office building at a snail's pace, rowing with all my might. After half an hour of strength training, exhausted like a dog, I finally pulled up against the 18th floor exterior glass wall of the office building, looking through the floor-to-ceiling window. Inside was a company that was already half submerged. I wedged the bow of the boat inside the window, gripping the meat cleaver tightly in my hand, while my other hand felt for the Type 64 pistol inside the space. Taking a deep breath, I climbed through the window into the room. The water level just happened to pass my knees. I took every step very lightly, quickly scanning around the place. Only in the darkness did I discover that the inside was actually completely empty. This place has already been looted. Following that, I checked several companies in a row, but the situation was exactly the same. I'm afraid the survivors in this building have already formed an organized group, letting out a cold snort. I shifted my gaze toward the ceiling. Since they've centralized the resources, that saves me from searching room by room. I'll just go straight to their door and rob them. However, just as you passed by a small office, a thick, rotting, fishy stench rushed right at your face. I subconsciously held my breath, pressing against the base of the wall to edge closer to the door. But the next scene, aided by the dim light, instantly let you see the horrifying silhouettes inside. Holy crap, this is so brutal. I saw that inside the originally not-so-large office area. There were actually 4 or 5 unsightly female corpses floating. Clearly, they had suffered inhumane torture before dying. This is only the 6th day of the apocalypse. The flood hasn't even completely submerged human conscience. Yet the guys in this building have already stopped acting like humans. However, just as I was preparing to back out, from further up the stairs, heavy footsteps and voices suddenly came over. I quickly ducked away, hiding in the nearby shadows to observe in secret. Not even a few seconds later, 2 men wearing filthy suits, with haggard faces, came down one after another, carrying a fresh female corpse. The 2 of them threw the corpse like tossing trash into that office that was already full of dead people. The man wearing glasses in the back wiped the sweat off his face, saying numbly, "Just for half a loaf of bread. She got ruined like this by Boss Peng and his guys. Before even getting a bite to eat, she's gone." The tall man in front shuddered in fear, hurriedly telling him to shut up. And then right after looking at the corpse, he muttered a soft Amitabha before quickly turning around to run upstairs, looking at the staircase landing where the 2 had vanished. My eyes turned icy cold. Boss Peng? Looks like he's the local tyrant of this building. This also means the material. The filter element is highly likely inside this Boss Peng's den. Checking the magazine, and after chambering around into the gun, I tiptoed and crept upward along the stairs. Inside the chairman's office on the top floor of the office building, 3 well-groomed, middle-aged men were currently sinking deep into a leather sofa. Boss Peng took a puff, his small beady eyes narrowing into a slit. Just now the satellite phone connected. My old connection over at Shihuan Mountains is still there. 5 days later, they will send a boat to pick us up to the shelter. Boss Shu, who had a balding hairstyle, and Boss Niu, who was small and skinny, had faces stacked with sycophantic smiles, beginning to flatter him with hoarse voices. It still has to be Boss Peng who has the wide network. Exactly, Boss Peng. When the time comes, you must give us brothers a hand. We're counting entirely on you. Boss Peng enjoyed their flattering gazes, glancing at the meat cans and dishes that were mostly emptied out. How much is left of the supplies and those women? Boss Shu rubbed his hands together, his tone sounding a bit hesitant. For women, there are still over a dozen locked up downstairs. There are at least 5 or 6 pretty ones left, enough for you to amuse yourself with for a while. But it's just that the supplies are probably running short. Boss Peng's tone carried a hint of playfulness. In this apocalypse, the most worthless consumable is human life. Find an excuse tonight to have Li Huo and his guys incite some riots. Don't let these people waste food anymore. Meanwhile, in the open office area on the 29th floor, over 100 survivors were crammed here. At this time, Zhou Xiaoli, who had a slender figure, standing 1.5 meters tall and weighing 200 pounds, spoke up. Those women who went up these past few days are probably living it up and eating good food. Even though it's selling one's body, it's still better than starving to death here, right? The thin and weak Xiao Yu had hollow eyes, feeling a bit uneasy. Not a single one of those older sisters who went up came back. Could something have happened? But Zhou Xiaoli rolled her eyes, her face full of disdain. Those few girls originally wanted to marry rich anyway. Now they got their wish. Who would still be willing to return to this pigsty? After saying that, she even deliberately raised her volume to complain. But those few nasty men really have terrible eyesight. They can't even see a naturally beautiful woman like me. However, just at this moment, a commotion suddenly came from the entrance of the hall. A buzz-cut man named Li Huo walked in with a few burly men. He was Boss Peng's trusted henchman, and also the manager of the survivors on this floor. Zhou Xiaoli's eyes lit up instantly, charging over like a fleshball tank. The floor even vibrated 3 times along with her. She deliberately pinched her voice to sound like a screeching drake speaking up. "Brother Li Huo, are you selecting people to go up and enjoy life again this time? Look at me, my skin is fair, and I'm pleasantly plump. I guarantee Boss Peng will be satisfied." The entire room instantly fell into a dead silence. Everyone's eyes widened, looking at this slightly plump lady who was almost a perfect square. A wave of disgust churned inside Li Huo, the corners of his mouth twitching twice. He forced down his own nausea, because nobody knew that his coming down this time wasn't for a beauty pageant at all, but rather to get rid of a few troublemakers and troublesome loads before the grand purge tonight. Taking 2 steps back, he gave his subordinates a look. "This fat pig counts as one, take her away." The subordinates understood perfectly, forcing down their disgust with a fake smile. "Beauty, come with us. Boss Peng is waiting up there." Zhou Xiaoli actually thought she had been chosen, letting out an arrogant snort. In fact, Li Huo caught a glimpse out of the corner of his eye of Xiao Yu next to her, who looked quite decent. "That girl looks pretty good too. Bring her along as well for Boss Peng to see." But who would have expected that just as Xiao Yu stood up? Zhou Xiaoli actually kicked her suddenly in the stomach. Xiao Yu's head immediately slammed onto the ground, knocking her out cold on the spot. Zhou Xiaoli even cried out hypocritically, "Oh my, I'm so sorry. Sister Xiao Yu, I didn't do it on purpose. I just didn't want you to get in my way. Just slipped my foot just now." But in her heart she was calculating that she must never let anyone else snatch this chance to enjoy life. Seeing Xiao Yu breathing her last breath, Li Hu could only lower his voice to instruct his men, "This girl is about to bite the dust. Find someone to throw her downstairs. Don't let her die here." After saying that, he hurriedly left the hall with Zhou Xiaoli and walked into the corridor. Although Zhou Xiaoli was stupid, she also sensed that something was off, because the direction these people were taking her was not toward the internal staircase to the 30th floor at all, but rather led to the safety passage downstairs. She hurriedly questioned him, "Brother Li Huo, you took the wrong way, right? Isn't this the way downstairs?" But the moment her words fell, 2 burly men lunged at her from the left and right, attempting to pin her down. Zhou Xiaoli instantly threw a fit, letting out a pig-slaughtering screech. That body with hundreds of pounds of fat actually erupted with staggering strength at this moment, instantly flinging the 2 burly men flying. The commotion was so massive it felt as if the entire building was vibrating. Meanwhile, inside the stairwell, as I was preparing to creep up, my movements paused, staring fixedly at the area above. I couldn't help but complain, "Damn, are they raising pigs in this building? To think they're fed this well." This time, the corridor had already turned into a complete mess. Li Ha was furious, hurriedly shouting, "You useless trash, get her all at once. Don't let her alarm the others." Right after 2 more burly men came up, the 4 grown men acted like they were pinning down a New Year's slaughter pig, using every ounce of their strength just to pin Zhou Xiaoli to the ground, wrapping duct tape around her mouth until it was completely sealed. Li Hu wiped away his sweat, viciously ordering, "Hurry up and drag her down to be slaughtered. Leave no traces behind." The 4 subordinates carried the desperately struggling Zhou Xiaoli, cursing and swearing as they walked downstairs. But just as they reached halfway down, the 2 walking at the very front suddenly stopped in their tracks. "It seems like there's someone inside." The 2 of them carefully stepped into the hallway to check, but it was dead silent inside, without even a single sound. The remaining scruffy man with stubble tossed Zhou Xiaoli to his companion and went inside to check by himself. But the moment he walked up to the corner, his figure suddenly froze, and then his legs, in a bizarre posture, walked backward as he came out, collapsing to the ground on the spot in the next instant, before his companion wearing the hat could even react. A cold gleam suddenly flashed out. A meat cleaver spun through the air, precisely killing him. Bound on the ground, Zhou Xiaoli witnessed this terrifying scene, and straight up peed herself in fear. Like a maggot, she desperately squirmed, trying to escape. Just then I walked out of the shadows, then used the tip of the knife to slice open the duct tape on Zhou Xiaoli's mouth. "Make one more sound and I'll cut off your tongue. Answer my questions honestly, and I can spare your life." Zhou Xiaoli nodded frantically in terror, confessing everything she knew one by one. "The survivors are all centralized on the 29th floor, while Boss Peng and the supplies are on the 30th floor. If anyone wants to go to the 30th floor, they can only pass through the 29th floor's central staircase. There are roughly over 30 armed personnel." Now, having a clear idea in my heart, I looked at the hat-wearing guy beneath my feet whose build was similar to mine, and instantly had a plan. I quickly stripped off the opponent's clothes, putting them onto my own body, and pulled the hat down low. Zhou Xiaoli begged me with a trembling voice, "Big brother, send me to a safe place." But I didn't even give her a single glance. Fend for yourself. Having been rejected, Zhou Xiaoli instantly threw a tantrum again, threatening to scream to draw the others over. But the moment her voice came out, I slashed down with the knife without the slightest hesitation. Zhou Xiaoli was put to sleep instantly, collapsing to the ground out cold, right after appearing at the 29th floor's staircase entrance. I pulled down the brim of my hat and pushed open the door. The two guards keeping watch at the door immediately greeted me, Brother Han. You came back so early. Where are the others? I deliberately made my voice raspy. The three of them suddenly felt the urge. They said they wanted to have some fun with that Sao before coming up. The guards froze for a second. The moment they thought of Zhou Xiaoli's physique, their stomachs instantly churned. Dry heaving, they waved their hands. All right, Brother Han, you go upstairs first. Brother Huo is pressing everyone to assemble. Keeping my head low, I blended in. The moment I stepped onto the 30th floor, I saw 2 rows of people standing in the main hall. There were about 20 or so guys, every single one holding a weapon. I stood at the back of the lineup without drawing attention, observing them, knowing full well in my heart that relying solely on the 7 rounds of ammunition in my pistol, forcing my way through was simply unrealistic. At this time, Li Huo walked over with his hands behind his back. He cleared his throat, shouting, "You guys are all elites handpicked by me and Boss Peng. Tonight there is only one mission. Take those useless trash and ugly things who do nothing, but consume food and wipe them all out. As long as we finish this job, when the boat arrives 5 days later, we will be able to follow Boss Peng to the Shihuan Mountains to live it up and eat good food." The crowd instantly let out excited low growls, their eyes completely filled with greed. But who would have thought that Li Huo would actually walk straight toward me at the end of the line? My entire body tensed up in an instant, thinking my cover was blown. My hands immediately went into a ready stance, prepared to draw the gun at any second. But in the next second, Li Hu slapped my shoulder heavily. "Xiao Han, you're the one I value the most. For tonight's mission, you will be the team captain." I was completely dumbfounded, screaming in my heart, "No way, bro. I just came here to find a material. You're messing with my mind way too much." But at this moment, I could only bite the bullet, lowering the brim of my hat as I nodded. Li Hu actually thought I was trembling, leaning close to threaten me, "Don't play any tricks with me. I'm the boss here. Do whatever I tell you to do." After saying that, he resumed his fake smile, instructing everyone to dismiss and rest up, ordering everyone to disperse and rest. We set out as soon as night falls. I originally wanted to take the chance to slip away, but Li Huo waved his hand and called me back. "Let's go, Xiao Han. Boss Peng wants to see us. Remember to talk less and nod more in a bit." Even though I felt entirely helpless in my heart, I could only bite the bullet and follow behind Li Huo, walking into Boss Peng's office. In front of a massive floor-to-ceiling window, Boss Peng sat in his leather executive chair with his back to us, holding a cigar and staring blankly at the sea outside. After gesturing for us to sit down, he casually tossed out 2 pieces of Dove chocolate. "Taste it. In the past, even dogs wouldn't eat this crap. Now it's more expensive than gold bars." Li Hu tore open the packaging without hesitation and stuffed it into his mouth, asking indistinctly, "Boss Peng, what are your instructions?" Boss Peng slowly turned around, his voice deep. A call came from the Shihuan Mountains. Highly aggressive mutated fish have appeared in the sea. The large ship has been swapped out for speedboats. The boarding slots are limited. I was instantly startled in my heart. The mutated fish clearly shouldn't have appeared until 6 days later, so why was it ahead of schedule? Could my rebirth have brought about a butterfly effect? At this time, Boss Peng held up 3 fingers and said, "There are only 3 tickets, and falsely reassured Li Huo and me. "You 2 are my most capable generals, so there will definitely be a slot for you guys." Li Huo's eyes instantly went wild as he hurriedly expressed his thanks. I followed suit, lowering my hat and thanking him too. But Boss Peng's tone suddenly shifted, becoming deathly cold. "We have too many people here. Once the boat arrives, there will definitely be chaos. Boss Shu and Boss Niu's 2 factions are currently just dead weight. When we make our move tonight, I don't want to see them still breathing by tomorrow." Li Hu stood up immediately, making a throat-slashing gesture. "Rest assured, Boss Peng, as soon as the riot starts tonight, I'll take Xiao Han and go finish them off." Right after Boss Peng told me to go out and rest first, saying he needed to talk to Li Huo about a private matter. This was exactly what I wanted, so I hurriedly backed out. But just as I closed the door, I heard Boss Peng lower his voice and say to Li Huo, "In truth, there are only 2 tickets. Although Xiaohan is loyal, his brain is too stubborn. Bringing him along is worse than bringing 2 crates of canned food. Once we finish off, Boss Shu and his guys clean up Xiaohan too while you're at it." Li Hao froze for a second, and then right after revealed a cruel smile. "Great minds think alike, Boss Peng. I've disliked him for a long time already." Meanwhile, after Li Huo left, Boss Peng looked at the sunset outside the window, the corner of his mouth curling into a sneer. "Li Huo, oh Li Huo, you really are a good dog. But it's a pity there has only ever been 1 ticket." As night fell, there was no electricity in the office building. There were only a few sheet metal oil drums, burning desk legs and wooden planks, the flickering firelight barely illuminating the main hall. Using the firelight, I mapped out the location where the supplies were stored. It was right in the former finance room, while 6 burly hulking men stood at the door, keeping an eye on each other. Through the crack in the door, I could vaguely see the resources inside. In the corner, there were actually placed several commercial water purifiers that had been dismantled. Burst of secret joy instantly hit my heart. Hard work pays off. I finally found it, but just as I was calculating how to make my move, a large hand suddenly slapped heavily onto my shoulder, only to hear Li Huo's voice come over Xiaohan. "What are you looking at? The time has come. Come with me, let's take care of business first." Glancing at the guards and Li Huo, I knew a frontal assault wasn't wise. It was better to beat them at their own game and move once things turned chaotic, so I nodded in silence, following Li Huo to where Boss Shu and Boss Niu were staying. The 2 stood in front of the door of a luxury suite. Even if the soundproofing was excellent, one could still hear the euphoric screams of men and women coming from inside. Li Hu let out a cold laugh and gave me a look. In the next instant, he violently kicked open the door. Boss Shu, who was currently playing hide-and-seek, shuddered in fright, instantly breaking out into loud curses. "Li Huo, do you want to die? How dare you break into my room?" Li Hao closed the door behind him, 2 machetes gleaming with a cold light under the candlelight. "Sorry to interrupt you 2 gents' pleasure. Boss Peng asked me to bring you 2 a message. He needs you guys to cooperate and drop dead." Boss Niu roared as he reached for a steel pipe by the bedside. But Li Huo didn't give him a single chance. His figure flashed as he rushed forward, wielding the 2 knives so tightly not even a drop of water could leak through, sending the 2 of them straight to their rebirth. The women screamed, scattering and fleeing for their lives, only to be blocked at the door by me. A woman knelt at my feet and begged, "Big brother, please let me go. I just wanted to trade for a bite to eat. I'm willing to do anything." My gaze was conflicted, knowing how hard it was for ordinary people to survive in this world. I immediately prepared to open the door to let them out. After all, the messier the scene, the easier it would be for me to succeed. But just as I turned the doorknob, the blood-crazed Li Huo rushed up. With a few quick strikes, he finished off the few women. The miserable screams inside the room instantly ground to a halt. Li Hao walked toward me step by step, his voice gloomy. "Xiaohan, Boss Shu and his guy are already on their way. Now it's your turn." But looking at the encroaching Li Huo, the corner of my mouth suddenly curled into an arc. In the next second, I took off my hat, revealing an unfamiliar face. "Xiaohuo, acting this heartless isn't very nice, is it?" Li Huo's pupils shrunk instantly, as he cried out, "Who are you? Where's Xiaohan?" But in the next split second, a pitch-black gun barrel, instantly aimed right between his eyes. "Drop the knives and raise your hands." I held the gun with one hand, my voice calm. Li Hao took a deep breath and let go of his grip, the 2 machetes dropping onto the ground. He stared at me, calculating in his heart that within 7 paces, he was confident he could snap my neck, while his mouth falsely begged for mercy. His feet suddenly exerted force as he lunged at me, but I didn't pull the trigger. Instead, I swung my arm in a wide arc, intending to pistol whip him. Li Hao was ecstatic in his heart, thinking there were no bullets in the gun. But the exact instant my arm swung out, the pistol suddenly vanished, replaced instead by a heavy meat cleaver. At such a close distance, the meat cleaver precisely slammed Li Huo onto the wall. Li Hu's eyes widened as he looked at the meat cleaver in his chest, then looked at the pistol that reappeared in my hand. His worldview completely collapsed in an instant. How did a pistol turn into a knife? I walked over and pulled out the meat cleaver. "This is called outsmarting you, kid. If your group of subordinates started shooting outside, the commotion would be too big and easily alert the target." Li Hu opened his mouth, staring with wide eyes as he completely breathed his last. I took back the meat cleaver, tidied up my gear, and pushed open the door to head out. In the main hall, the group of over 20 people had already finished assembling. At this time, someone asked in confusion, "Captain Han, where is Brother Huo?" I calmly cleared my throat. "Brother Huo is constipated while taking a dump. He told us to take a step ahead." The crowd instantly fell into a stir, but nobody dared to act on their own. I suddenly raised my volume and roared, "Questions, questions, questions! Don't you guys have brains of your own? The mission given by Boss Peng is so simple. Slash anyone you see. Do I still need to teach you bastards how to hold a knife? If anyone delays our chance to go to the Shihuan Mountains, I'll be the first to cripple him." This shout completely intimidated everyone. A veteran immediately jumped out to echo my words, leading the crowd to split into 3 groups and rush toward the staircase entrance. Even the 6 guards watching the supplies followed suit and rushed down. In less than a minute, the 30th floor became completely empty. Letting out a cold laugh, I turned around and went straight for the supply room. The resources inside weren't considered plentiful, but I didn't have the patience to look closely. Heading straight for the water purifiers in the corner. Splitting open the outer casing with one slash, I successfully looted 5 excellent tier filter elements. Ecstatic in my heart, I thought, this time I've struck it rich. With these, I can build a water purifier, and even guarantee subsequent consumption. However, just as I was fully absorbed in looting the resources, a spine-chilling coldness like thorns on my back instantly made my scalp go numb. In the next split second, a cold dagger was silently pressed against my lower back. Boss Peng's sinister voice echoed by my ear. "I knew there was something off about you, kid. Where did Li Huo go? I'm afraid he was killed by you, right?" My heart tensed up. I never would have expected that Boss Peng would actually creep over without a sound. How should I get away next? At this time, the dagger in Boss Peng's hand pushed forward half an inch, piercing through my clothes. He also reached out to grope around my body, but he didn't find any weapons, only finding the filter elements. He couldn't help but laugh loudly. "So you stole this piece of crap to be able to easily finish off Li Huo and even blend in. Young man, you've got some skills. You're a talent." He tossed the filter element back to me, taking a step back and putting on a show of humbling himself to recruit talent. "I won't kill you. I'll even give you a chance. I'll give you a boat ticket to the Shihuan Mountains. You become my right-hand man and help me build an apocalyptic business empire at the stronghold. How about it?" Looking at his high and mighty face, the corner of my mouth twitched. Feeling a bit disdainful, I replied, "Not interested. Wanting me to be a lapdog just for a lousy boat ticket. This guy has simply gone stupid from acting like a local tyrant." The smile on Boss Peng's face froze instantly, refusing a carrot only to take the stick. "I haven't fought in over a decade, so I don't know if I've lost my martial arts skills." The moment his words fell, I was struck in the chest by a punch from Boss Peng. Letting out an instant muffled groan, I slammed against the wall, my limbs paralyzed. I didn't even have the strength to raise my hand and draw the gun. Boss Peng slowly raised the dagger, giving me one last chance, and even said he would tell me a secret I'd definitely be interested in. And that was that the authorities chose the stronghold at Shihuan Mountains, not because of the high terrain at all. I hurriedly agreed. After all, preserving my life was what mattered most. But just as Boss Peng was preparing to reveal the secret, a sudden clap of thunder exploded, drowning out his voice. Outside the window, the rain poured like a waterfall. Boss Peng suddenly froze on the spot, staring out the window with terrified eyes. "Impossible! How could that thing—" Followed his line of sight, aided by the lightning to see on the pitch-black sea surface. A massive black shadow currently breaking through the giant waves, swimming toward the office building at extreme speed. That wasn't a boat, but a living creature. Right after a deep, muffled sound came from the bottom of the sea, the entire 30-story office building shook violently. The floor instantly cracked apart, and the floor slab carrying a large amount of supplies completely collapsed. Both Boss Peng and I fell down along with the rubble. Inside the main hall on the 29th floor, the survivors were wailing non-stop. The ceiling suddenly caved in, and the supplies along with 2 living people slammed heavily onto the ground. As the smoke and dust cleared, Boss Peng, who was covered in dirt from the fall, quickly stood up. He spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva, pointing at me. "Consider yourself lucky. Next, solve them. Take it as your initiation fee." letting out a cold laugh. I slowly crawled up, feeling gradually returning to my fingers, looking at the charging boss Peng. I suddenly spoke up. Have you ever heard a saying, beyond 7 paces? What is the fastest? Boss Peng gripped the dagger tightly, the flesh on his face twitching. In the next split second, his feet suddenly exerted force, charging at me like a cannonball leaving the barrel. If an ordinary person took this impact, their bones would be completely shattered. But I didn't dodge, only flipping my right hand lightly. A Type 64 pistol appeared out of thin air in my palm. Raising my hand to aim, the movement was smooth as flowing water. Beyond 7 paces, the gun is fast. But within 7 paces, the gun is both accurate and fast. Boss Peng's pupils shrunk sharply as he yelled, "You're not playing by the rules?" But the only thing that kept him company was a crisp gunshot, echoing through the dead silent hall. Even until his death, he couldn't figure out where my pistol had been hidden. Witnessing this scene, the entire room instantly fell dead silent. Those blood-crazed guys looked at the gun in my hand, every single one turning deathly pale in fear, and scurrying all over the place. But I had absolutely no time to deal with them. The muffled roar and black shadow at the bottom of the sea just now were absolutely not things I could handle right now. This is no place to linger. But just as I was preparing to leave amidst the chaos, 8 desperate thugs holding machetes exchanged glances and instantly surrounded me. Wealth is found in danger. As long as we snatch that gun, all the supplies and women in this whole building will be ours. Looking at the encroaching thugs, I clicked my tongue in annoyance. Since you want to rob me, then all of you can stay here forever. At the same time, I calculated in my heart that I only had 6 rounds of ammunition left. Facing 8 people spread out in combat positions, there was simply no way to take them down one by one. Moreover, bullets are precious and shouldn't be wasted on this cannon fodder. Taking a deep breath, I suddenly burst forward toward one side. With a loud bang of a gunshot, the slowest reacting thug on the flank collapsed to the floor on the spot. Before the others could even react, the pistol in my hand vanished out of thin air, replaced instead by a heavy meat cleaver. Using the momentum, my figure cut between 2 of them like a ghost, the blade striking with precision. In just a brief 2 seconds, 3 people had collapsed to the floor. The remaining 5 guys instantly froze, their legs turning to jelly from my terrifying efficiency. Nobody dared to step forward anymore. But just at this moment, an even more violent impact sound came over. The entire office building tilted violently, the angle instantly exceeding 30 degrees. The survivors in the hall lost their balance, sliding along the floor toward the floor-to-ceiling windows like canned goods. The glass shattered, and dozens of figures plunged into the pitch-black sea, vanishing without even a splash. I was also sliding downward uncontrollably, relying on my ultra-fast reflexes. I slammed my meat cleaver backhanded into the floor. But just as I stabilized myself, a thug grabbed onto my lower leg, begging as if grasping at a lifesaver. I only felt my lower body sink, the meat cleaver making an overloaded creaking sound. I had already been punched by Boss Peng earlier. Without any hesitation, I immediately kicked him square in the face, watching the opponent plunge into the sea. I didn't feel soft-hearted in the slightest. In the apocalypse, being soft-hearted will only get yourself killed. And at this time, the tilt angle of the office building was still worsening, almost turning into a vertical wall. The handle of the meat cleaver was gradually deforming. I knew I couldn't waste any more time. So I looked up toward the load-bearing pillar at the corridor entrance. With a single thought, the god-tier fishing rod appeared, gripping the rod with my left hand. I cast the rod fiercely with my right hand. The fishing line wrapped precisely around the load-bearing pillar, tying into a stable knot. Then I wrapped the fishing line around my body, pulled out the meat cleaver, and used it like an ice axe to edge upward bit by bit, finally climbing above the load-bearing pillar. I leaped into the corridor, but before I could even celebrate, the upper half of the office building snapped completely. I felt as if the entire world turned upside down. A sense of weightlessness hit me, and I was thrown violently against the ceiling before smashing heavily back onto the floor. Right after powerful water pressure broke through the hall windows, and icy seawater instantly flooded the entire space. I was immediately swept away by the seawater, crashing into the corner of the corridor. My vision went black, and my consciousness almost cut out completely. In a daze, I felt as if I had returned to my past life when I was pushed off the boat, that desperate moment of being torn and bitten by sharks. I didn't get reborn just to become a drowned ghost. A strong will to survive supported me, holding on to my last breath. I discerned the direction in the murky water and swam desperately toward the floor-to-ceiling window at the end of the corridor. There was still a distance of over 20 meters. With my current lung capacity, taking a gamble would get me out. But just as my legs kicked hard, preparing to accelerate my ascent, a hair-raising disturbance in the water currents suddenly came from beneath my feet, aided by the lightning. I saw within the abyss a massive, despair-inducing black shadow, shooting upward like an arrow leaving a bowstring. A massive mouth filled with sharp, jagged teeth was aimed right at me. My mental state completely broke down. I just wanted to drink a mouthful of clean water. So why is it that whether it's humans or monsters, they all want to drive me to my death? But I gnashed my teeth and gripped the god-tier fishing rod tightly. Even if it means a desperate final struggle, I'm going to make this sea monster pay a price. Using the last of my strength, I whipped out the fishing rod, the hook precisely embedding itself into the sea monster's flesh. A system prompt suddenly rang out during the fishing process. The host's current stamina has been depleted. Upon successful fishing, you will fall into a state of total unconsciousness. I let out a faint smile and let go of the fishing rod, my brain gradually losing consciousness. I didn't know if I could survive, or did I know what kind of miracle this single cast could fish up. An unknown amount of time passed. I woke up in a patch of soft white light. The feeling of suffocation vanished, replaced instead by a strange warmth. Subconsciously, I squeezed the thing in my hand. It was soft and felt extremely good. But just at this moment, an angry, ashamed, and prideful ethereal female voice echoed inside my mind. "You absolute bastard! How dare you commit sacrilege? If this venerable one weren't bound by those damn rules, I would never acknowledge you as my master. I have noted down this debt. One day, I will definitely swallow you alive and tear you apart." Right after my cheek was slapped heavily, a sharp pain surged over, and my body plummeted violently, sinking into darkness once again. The next day, I was woken up by the sound of birds chirping, discovering that I was lying inside the familiar cockpit of my boat. Outside the window, the sea surface was calm, the weather beautiful and sunny, complete contrast to the violent storm of last night. I tried hard to recall everything from last night: the building collapsing, falling into the sea, being swallowed by a sea monster, and that strange dream. But the details inside the dream were blurry and indistinct. I only remembered there was a woman screaming and cursing, summoning the god-tier fishing rod. Only the number of fishing attempts had increased by 1 on the status panel. There weren't any newly added items, nor any changes to proficiency value or mental value. While this left my heart filled with confusion, the exact moment I touched my left cheek, a burst of sharp pain shot over. Taking a closer look using the reflection from the window glass, I was instantly stunned. The left side of my face was swollen high up, with a slap mark vividly imprinted on it. The 5 fingers were petite and slender, clearly a woman's hand, and the force was so immense it almost blew my skull off. What shocked me even more was that at the carotid artery on the right side of my neck, 3 additional aqua blue scale patterns had appeared, deeply branded into the flesh. They would even flicker faintly along with my breathing, and couldn't be scraped off no matter how hard I tried. I was completely bewildered. I was the only person on the boat. So how could there be a woman's slap mark and strange patterns? Could it be that after being spit out by the sea monster last night, I was saved by some woman and then got slapped by her? Unable to figure it out, I could only put aside my doubts for now, groping the 5 perfectly intact filter elements inside my pants pocket. No matter what happened, as long as I'm alive, there will be a chance to figure it out. The top priority right now is to build a water purifier and solve the issue of drinking water. Stepping out of the cockpit, I pulled out the blueprint to check the primary material. The filter elements were secured, and the secondary materials were all collected too. The only things missing were charcoal fragments and plastic bottles. Plastic bottles could be seen everywhere on the sea surface, so the difficult part lay in the charcoal. Recalling a survival video I had swiped through before, charcoal could be crafted using the destructive distillation method, and so I summoned the god-tier fishing rod and fished back from the sea surface a rusty iron bucket, plastic bottles, and empty tin cans, beginning to manually craft a simple charcoal kiln. However, just as I was preparing to chop the wooden blocks, the meat cleaver suddenly snapped into 2 pieces. Using it as an ice axe last night had already overdrawn its durability, rendering it completely broken. Without losing heart, I used the broken blade as a wedge, then used a wooden block as a hammer, forcibly splitting out a pile of wooden strips. Then I stuffed the wooden strips into an empty tin can, placed it upside down in the center of the iron bucket, and ignited the wood shavings. A miniature destructive distillation charcoal kiln was thus completed. Taking advantage of the gap while burning the charcoal, I took out the mineral water with only half a bottle left, took a sip, and started today's fishing. After all, in the apocalypse, one can never have too many supplies. 5 hours later, at 1 p.m., I sat at the bow of the boat. The fishing rod pulled into a full moon shape. Exerting force with both arms, I reeled in the line at a steady speed, and instantly a greenish-gray light orb broke through the water, slamming onto the deck. Fishing successful. Obtained 1 set of high-performance combat deep-diving wetsuit, 5 proficiency points, and 2 mental value points. I was instantly overjoyed. In the past, this set of deep-diving gear possessed stab-proof and temperature-regulating features, along with an oxygen tank, motorized fins, and a searchlight. On the vast ocean, this was simply a second life. I hurriedly stored the deep-diving gear into my spatial ring, then took stock of the morning's fishing harvest. There was also a carbon steel crowbar and a set of assault jacket and pants. I could finally change out of these tattered clothes that were covered in sweat and grime, rubbing the skin on my hands raw and swollen. Having changed into the new clothes, I walked over to the front of the iron bucket and used the crowbar to pry out the upside-down tin can. The wooden strips inside had already turned into pitch-black, lightweight blocks of carbon by this time. I walked briskly to the workbench in the cockpit, placed all the materials on the table, and yelled, "Craft primary tier Bilyeu-style freshwater purifier." In the next second, a faint light glowed on the workbench, and a few seconds later, a peculiarly styled purifier appeared before my eyes. Production efficiency 40 to 45 milliliters per hour. Filtration accuracy 0.0001 microns. Capable of producing direct drinking grade fresh water. Acting with extreme caution. I hung the purifier onto the window frame, set up a plastic cup, and poured in the murky seawater. Watching the seawater turn clear bit by bit, I sat cross-legged on the bed, staring at the water outlet tube without blinking an eye. Finally, a crystal-clear drop of water dripped down. The ticking sound exceptionally pleasant to the ear in the silent cockpit. I knew that was the sound of hope. As the sky gradually darkened 4 hours later, the plastic cup had already accumulated around 150 milliliters of clear fresh water. With trembling hands, I picked up the cup, tilted my head back, and downed it in one gulp. Instantly, every cell in my entire body began to cheer. At this moment, the corners of my eyes grew moist once again. Only those who have experienced absolute despair would understand how hard-earned this half cup of cooled boiled water truly was. This wasn't just water, but rather my qualification to keep surviving. And right at this moment, the sound of muffled thunder echoed outside the window once more. Aided by the flash of lightning, I saw the dark clouds on the distant horizon were even heavier and denser than last night. The torrential rain was coming again. I knew clearly in my heart that the butterfly effect brought by my rebirth had already made this world become far more dangerous than in my memory the mutated fish appearing ahead of schedule, the terrifying giant shadow of the abyss, and the frequent rainstorms. The road ahead would only get harder to walk. Setting the cup back down, my gaze turned solemn as I looked at the broken diesel engine next to the workbench. The water source has already been resolved, so next up are propulsion and food. Relying solely on a wooden oar to row the boat, I wouldn't even have a chance to escape when encountering danger. Clenching my fists, my eyes were filled with determination. I must repair the engine as quickly as possible, then head to the Shihuan Mountains stronghold to search for more supplies and opportunities. In this lifetime, I will not only stay alive, but also live more comfortably than anyone else. Meanwhile, at the exact same time, inside a high-rise residential apartment of the Fengjiang Yuan residential quarter, Chenze slumped on the sofa, clutching an empty mineral water bottle in his hand, futilely pouring it toward his mouth. His lips were entirely covered in dry white skin, and his throat was parched to the point of aching. Chu Xin held a fruit knife, slicing the apple peels inside the trash can, trying to suck a tiny bit of moisture out of them. Ershan cradled a weak teddy dog, staring blankly at the dark clouds outside the window, lamenting, when will this kind of life ever end? But they didn't know that on the ocean far away, I had already found the hope of survival. And as for their lives, how could they preserve them? At this moment, Chenze slammed the empty bottle heavily onto the ground, yelling at the top of his lungs in the next second, "Drinking that dirty rainwater made us vomit and have diarrhea, and the toilet even backed up with water. This piece of crap building is simply a living coffin." Chu Xin shrank into a corner, speaking up timidly. If only Lu Fan were still alive. He definitely would have brought a lot of supplies. This sentence instantly ignited Chenze's rage. Lu Fan, Lu Fan? Lu Fan is all you know." He stood up abruptly, crossed his arms, and stared viciously at Chu Xin. "That guy died in the sea a long time ago. To count on him to deliver water is pure daydreaming." Right after he turned around and dragged out a deflated double inflatable raft, his gaze sweeping ruthlessly over Chu Xin and Second Aunt. "Tomorrow morning, as soon as the rain stops, we go to the pier to find a yacht. If you don't go, just wait to die of thirst." Second Aunt was so scared she trembled all over, not daring to argue. The three of them took turns stepping on the inflation pump all night, gambling everything for that single slim chance of survival. But they didn't know that the very me whom Chenze cursed as dead in the sea was currently lying inside the cockpit of the wooden boat, woken up by the first ray of morning sunlight, under the water purifier that had been guarded all night. The plastic cup had already filled up completely with clear fresh water, a heavy 500 milliliters. In an apocalypse where fresh water is 100 times more precious than gold, this cup of water is enough to make people fight to the death. I held my breath, holding the cup with extreme caution, forcing down the urge to chug it all in one gulp. I poured it into a sealed bottle without losing a single drop. With this freshwater purifier, even if I drift on the sea for a year, I will absolutely never turn into a dried corpse. And at this time, having drifted powered down for a night, the wooden boat had actually brought me to the West City District. Song Corporation Entertainment's magnificent golden internet celebrity high-rise was right on the left side, 1 kilometer away, no more than 5 or 6 kilometers from the former Fengjiang Yuan. Looking at that building, there wasn't a single ripple in my heart. Whether Chenze and Chu Xin lived or died wasn't even worth mentioning. The most urgent matter right now is to repair that broken diesel engine. But the repair plan that popped up on the workbench delivered a heavy blow straight to my head. Alloy crankshaft, high-pressure fuel injector, and sealed piston ring set were all core missing parts. At this moment, I suddenly remembered that near the Song Corporation building, there was a massive hardware and electrical market. Even if submerged under 50 meters of water, heavy machinery parts would absolutely never be washed away by the currents. I pulled the high-performance combat deep-diving wetsuit out of my space, punched on the last half-pack of beef jerky to replenish energy, then nimbly changed into the full set of diving battle gear, took a deep breath and leaped right down. The deep-diving wetsuit's constant temperature system instantly locked in my body heat, and the water pressure was also mostly dispersed. I navigated through the water like a fish, a 5,000 lumen beam of the headlamp breaking through the darkness, yet failed to notice that inside the shadow not far away, a pair of eyes as large as bowls, glowing with a crimson, eerie, and overflowing light, were staring dead at my figure. With a sway of several tentacles, it silently followed after me, 50 meters underwater. It was terrifyingly dead silent, with only the hissing sound of the breathing valve and the gurgling sound of water bubbles. The asphalt roads of the past had turned into silt, and deep trenches covered in seaweed. Luxury cars were stacked messily together, their windows shattered. Moreover, giant sea monsters must be lurking around nearby, gripping the crowbar tightly. I didn't dare to delay, swimming desperately in the direction of the hardware and electrical market. Managing with great difficulty to reach the entrance of the market, I discovered that the rolling shutter door was locked tightly. I jammed the crowbar into the crack of the door, pushed my feet against the ground, and exerted force with my arms. A door that could be easily pried open on land was harder than climbing to heaven 50 meters underwater. I gnashed my teeth and used leverage to grind it out bit by bit. Over 10 minutes later, along with a crisp snapping sound, the slide rail deformed, finally prying open an opening just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. But looking up at the oxygen gauge, 20 minutes had already passed since submerging. The oxygen tank only had a remaining margin of 40 minutes, leaving only 20 minutes of time to find the items. Squeezing inside the shop, everything was a complete mess. So I went straight for the upright counters. Fortunately, I found a high-pressure fuel injector inside a sealed plastic box. On the repair bench in the corner, there was also an unopened sealed piston ring set. But after searching through the entire inventory area, the most crucial alloy crankshaft showed absolutely no sign of its existence. Just at this moment, the oxygen alarm triggered with a rapid beep. The remaining oxygen was down to only 6 minutes. Making a prompt decision, I grabbed the parts, stuffed them into my waist pouch, and headed for the opening. But just as I poked half my body out, a massive black shadow vividly appeared in the murky seawater over 10 meters away. My heart tensed up, thinking it was a great white shark. I quickly held my breath and turned off the headlamp, intending to use the darkness to conceal myself. But that black shadow actually seemed to have eyes. As its head turned directly over, those crimson eyes locked dead onto me. I instantly turned on the headlamp. The moment the light beam hit the black shadow, I gasped a cold breath. How was this a great white shark? The upper body had the grayish-white skin of a mutated shark. Its gills turned outward and covered in sharp bone spurs. Yet the lower body didn't have a tail fin, replaced instead by 7 or 8 thick, dark red octopus tentacles, their suckers as large as bowl openings, stirring up murky silt with every single wave. This was fundamentally a cross-species deformed monster. Enraged by the intense light, the shark-octopus hybrid released a high-frequency vibration from its throat. A visible water ripple instantly exploded outward. A sharp pain hit my eardrums. My head buzzed, and my whole body felt as if struck by a heavy sledgehammer, losing balance in an instant. Before I could even gather myself, the shark-octopus slammed its massive body brutally into the rolling shutter door. The originally sturdy door caved inward as if made of paper. Right after, the rolling shutter door was torn apart completely, and the shark-octopus's head squeezed inside, its bloody maw snapping wildly in the open space, backing away in a flurry. I used the motorized fins to desperately evade, but misfortunes never come alone. The sound of the oxygen alarm grew more and more rapid, with the remaining oxygen down to just 1 minute. A sudden throb of intense pain also came from my leg, while the motorized fins directly overloaded and entered cooling mode. The moment my speed slowed down, the water currents behind me instantly became turbulent, and the shark-octopus's bloody maw was close at hand. Just as I wanted to swim, my left leg was bitten hard. The stab-proof feature of the wetsuit was as fragile as paper, the rows of sharp teeth piercing through the protective layer and deep into the flesh. Intense pain instantly swept through my entire body. I was convulsing all over from the pain. Yet I didn't give up resisting, swinging the crowbar to stab fiercely at the shark-octopus's eyes. But with 2 metallic clangs, the crowbar was actually deflected away on the eyelids of this monster. There was actually a transparent nictitating membrane covering them. Having felt the pain, the shark-octopus's disposition became even more berserk, shaking its head crazily, trying to tear off my leg. 3 tentacles wrapped around my waist and both arms, constricting tighter and tighter. A sense of suffocation and acute pain hit at the same time, and my vision started to go black. As my bones let out cracking sounds from the constriction, the Grim Reaper's scythe was already resting on my neck. However, just when I thought I was a dead man for sure, those 3 silent aqua-blue scale patterns on my neck suddenly erupted with a scorching hot temperature. Right after, a surge of hot current instantly spread through my whole body, and a dazzling aqua-blue light wave centering on me exploded outward in a ring. The shark-octopus that was biting me tightly was actually blasted 5 or 6 meters away on the spot, slamming heavily onto the wall. Clutching my thigh, I fell into the silt, panting heavily. Looking up, I saw a speck of aqua-blue light floating in front of me, condensing into a humanoid form of light. From the tall, graceful, and slender figure, one could tell it was the silhouette of a woman, stabilizing its form. The shark-octopus completely went wild upon seeing the prey at its mouth get away. Its grayish-white skin instantly became congested and turned red, its body size expanding several times over like it was inflating, and the bone spurs on its body stood up one by one, entering its Phase 2 berserk state. But facing this terrifying monster, that aqua-blue light shadow merely tilted her head slightly. An ethereal female voice carrying an absolute pride that was etched into her bones echoed underwater. "A little trash fish that hasn't even transformed yet. How dare you act presumptuously before this venerable one?" The moment her words fell, the slender fingertip of the aqua-blue light shadow pointed across the empty space. A beam of pure ultimate aqua blue light wave exploded outward in a fan shape. The dark, murky seabed was illuminated in an instant, the aqua blue light aura spreading out, dyeing the entire nearby sea area thoroughly. Meanwhile, on the sea surface, Chenze, Chu Xin, and Second Ant were rowing the inflatable raft, moving forward with great difficulty. This eruption of energy directly whipped up terrifying stormy waves. The inflatable raft was tossed around like a withered leaf, and Second Ant, along with the dog, plunged into the sea, vanishing without a trace. This strange anomaly even alarmed the Shihuan Mountains over 300 kilometers away. At the stronghold, the red lights flashed crazily as a Tier 1 alarm was pulled. Song Han, on the top floor of the Song Corporation building, also witnessed this bizarre phenomenon between heaven and earth. The underwater hardware market, along with its foundation and steel rebars, was actually wiped out directly by this light wave, leaving behind only a smooth, massive crater on the seabed. That overbearing Phase 2 shark octopus didn't even have a single speck of residue left, turning into blood mist and merging into the sea. As the green light aura receded, that hazy figure walked in front of me, her ethereal female voice filled with suppressed rage. "You absolute bastard! A mere piece of trash fish. Actually wasted one of this venerable one's protection scales. It's truly 8 lifetimes of absolute bad luck to be dragged down by a piece of garbage like you." Her cold, illusory hand gripped my chin, her hollow eyes filled with endless resentment. "Treasure your own life well. If my primordial source is damaged because of your death, even if I have to risk divine retribution, I will personally tear your soul to shreds and make sure you can never be reincarnated for eternity." Did you get that? My heart nearly stopped from the shock of that overwhelming pressure, so I could only nod desperately. The woman let out a cold snort, turning into specks of starlight and dispersing. A protective orb of light shattered along with her, and the icy seawater instantly flooded back in. Only then did I discover that the oxygen tank had long been empty, but as I subconsciously kicked my legs, I realized the acute pain on my leg had vanished. Looking down, the wetsuit had a massive hole torn in it, but the skin inside was smooth as new, without even a single scar. I didn't have time to marvel at it. Relying on the motorized fins that had finished cooling down, I floated upward at full speed, clambering onto the gunwale in a wretched state and pulling myself onto the deck, gasping greedily for fresh air. My back felt chillingly cold, and my hands and feet wouldn't stop trembling. I reached toward my neck. Out of the 3 aqua blue scale patterns, only 2 were left. The bottommost one had vanished completely, leaving only a faint red mark. So it turns out these were 3 life-saving opportunities, and I actually wasted one already. Just who on earth was that mysterious woman, cleaving the sea with a single finger, turning her hand to summon clouds, and flipping it to bring rain? This kind of power had long exceeded human comprehension. But before I could even recover from my shock, the sound of rowing came from the sea surface not far away. A dinghy was sailing toward me. 2 burly men sat on the boat, holding self-made long spears and watermelons knives in their hands, their expressions unkind. I listened to their conversation. The stubbly man in the rear cabin disdained the wooden boat for being old and worn out, while the bald man in the front cabin grinned savagely, saying he would knock me unconscious and take me back, pocketing the supplies on the boat for the 2 of them. Young Master Song wouldn't care anyway. The 2 nimbly climbed onto the deck, the bald man tapping the guardrail with the spine of his knife arrogantly, yelling fiercely, "Hey, kid, young Master Song thinks highly of you and invites you to go up and head chat. Hand over the things on your body first, especially the food. If you dare to hide anything, I'll break your legs." Having held my breath underwater for too long just now, the after effects of oxygen deprivation made my chest heave violently. I responded with half-squinted eyes. The stubbly guy impatiently stepped forward, wanting to body search me. But the exact moment he took a single step, a loud gunshot went bang, making the deck hum. A hole instantly appeared on his forehead. The bald guy was completely stunned on the spot, his legs giving out as he knelt on the iron plate, kowtowing desperately. "Big bro, it's a misunderstanding, a massive misunderstanding. Young Master Song saw that you were all alone and feared you might be in danger, so he sent us over to back you up." With an expressionless face, I walked over and pressed the muzzle against his forehead. "Who sent you guys? What do you want to do?" The bald guy trembled, pointing toward the Song Corporation building, speaking as fast as a machine gun. But I didn't believe his lame lies at all. Looking up toward the top floor of the Song Corporation building, even from such a long distance away, I could still feel a gaze watching this exact spot. The moment I pulled back the muzzle, the bald guy had just breathed a sigh of relief. When I flipped my left hand, and a hexagonal crowbar appeared out of thin air, smiting him precisely on the head. He didn't even let out a scream, collapsing straight to the ground. I kicked him into the sea, sneering and muttering to myself, "Take me back, sorry. But I'm not stupid. This gunshot is the absolute best deterrent. Within a short period of time, the people from the Song Corporation building will definitely not dare to provoke a ruthless guy with a gun again." Exhausted to the absolute limit, I took a nap. By the time I woke up, my stomach was growling loudly. Relying on beef jerky and spicy strips to fill my stomach these past few days created too massive a calorie deficit. I've probably lost over 10 pounds. I picked up the god-tier fishing rod and sat on the deck. If it weren't for the ruins covering the entire world, this would actually feel a bit like a vacation. Just as I was dawning off staring at the float, the corpse of Chu Xin's second aunt actually drifted to the side of my boat. I remembered this mean and sarcastic face very clearly. In the previous life, she was the one standing on the boat, watching me get devoured by sharks, while refusing to lift a finger to save me. Raising an eyebrow, I grabbed a wooden oar and jabbed hard at the corpse, pushing it away. In the last life, you watched me feed the sharks. In this life, go ahead and get a good taste of the seawater yourself. Meanwhile, on the sea surface a few kilometers away, Chenze and Chu Xin had lost second aunt and even dropped their supplies. Chu Xin's finger pointing made Chenze explode completely. He slapped Chu Xin hard across the face, having hit a dead end the two of them. Finally decided to head toward the Song Corporation building, gambling for a slim chance of survival, and my fishing session finally welcomed a pleasant surprise. The fishing line sank abruptly. I whipped the rod to reel it in, and a black gift box imprinted with gold-foiled letters landed on the deck. Top tier of 5 Wagyu BBQ set. My eyes went wide on the spot. Clutching the gift box, I ducked into the cockpit. Coincidentally, a light rain began to fall from the sky. I cleared away the parts on the workbench, set up a disposable self-heating grill, and tore open the packaging. 2 palm-sized ribeye steaks lay inside the tray, the red and white marbled snowflake texture looking like a work of art. I ignited the quick-burning charcoal and spread on some butter. The milky aroma of the melting butter instantly exploded inside the cabin. Placing the Wagyu beef onto the grill pan, a sizzling sound echoed as the juices started bubbling. The aggressive meat aroma mixed with the smoky scent of fruitwood filled my entire nasal cavity. I popped open another can of iced cola. The dim yellow flame of the candle danced amidst the curtain of rain. A bite of charred, crispy, tender, and smooth Wagyu, followed by a gulp of icy cola. The abundant meat juices burst inside my mouth, while the refreshing carbonation washed down my esophagus. The absolute ultimate satisfaction made every single pore of my body relax. Yet at this very moment on the top floor of the Song Corporation building, Song Han and Manager Zhong's dinner consisted of only sliced canned luncheon meat and dry bread, along with half a cup of red wine that had been aerated for too long. Song Han had been watching me through his binoculars all afternoon, only thinking that I was fishing for trash in the sea, lamenting, "This kid is drifting all alone on the sea, with nothing to eat or drink. Aside from sleeping, he probably has nothing else to do. Right now, if I gave him a single bite of luncheon meat, he'd probably go crazy with joy." How could he possibly know that inside the small wooden boat 1 kilometer away, I was currently enjoying a top-tier feast that he wouldn't even dare to dream of? Following a night of torrential rain, Chenze and Chu Xin were trapped in the ruins. They didn't find a yacht, and their supplies were entirely lost. The two blamed each other, but in the end, they still followed the broadcast from the Song Corporation building and found their way over. Meanwhile, on my end, I was fretting over a pile of parts. The high-pressure fuel injector and piston rings were secured, but the alloy crankshaft was still missing. Just as I was pondering where to search, the people from the building knocked on my door again. The one who came this time was an old man wearing a Mao suit, claiming to be Zhong Song Han's man. I frowned, my right hand loosely gripping as the crowbar appeared out of thin air in my palm. Did they send an old geezer over to die? But the old man tapped his feet, causing the wooden dinghy to sink down, and like a giant rock spreading its wings, he leaped forward, landing steadily on the deck. My pupils shrank instantly. This old guy is actually a martial arts expert, with a shift of his body, looking just like a phantom. He closed the distance and his withered palm clamped onto my wrist like iron pincers, using the momentum to twist and press down. I cried out in pain, "Ow, ow, ow, I surrender." Only then did I realize that though this old guy looked frail and thin, his strength was ridiculously immense. Zhong let out his grip, saying calmly, "This old man did not come this time with hostile intentions, but rather to make a deal with you on behalf of young Master Song. What young Master Song fancies is your ability to stay alive through the tsunami, and he wants to recruit you." I instantly fell silent. In the early stage of the apocalypse, what major factions lacked most was talent, and a place like the Song Corporation building might just happen to have the alloy crankshaft I desperately need. Instead of searching blindly like a headless fly, it's better to go into the dragon's den to try my luck, even if the talk falls through. Running away won't be an issue. I agreed on the spot, but I put forward 2 hard requirements. First, once I go up, whoever touches this boat, I will kill them. Second, if the deal falls through, don't think about forcing me to stay. If pushed too far, I'll risk my own life to drag your young Master Song down with me to the afterlife. Zhong nodded slightly and agreed without hesitation. I followed Zhong up the Song Corporation building. Arriving at the 50th floor meeting room, I finally met Song Han, clad in a blue-black suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking refined and elegant, and the woman by his side turned out to be the famous Dragon Country film star Chenze Yue. With a head of big wavy curly hair and a tight hip-hugging skirt, she was a major star. Yet her face was full of impatience. Chenze Yue originally wanted to put on the airs of a big star, but seeing my blank look, she let out a cold snort, saying her face was displayed on the downtown LED screens every single day. I came to a sudden realization, grinning widely. "Ah, the big star. I remember now. In the past, during the dead of night, I certainly committed quite a few mistakes while thinking of you." The moment this sentence came out, the air instantly froze. Chenze Yue's face flushed bright red, pointing at me while trembling with rage. "You absolute hooligan?" I ignored her directly, turning my head to look at Song Han. Pulling back my smile, I said, "Young Master Song, let's skip the pleasantries. I'm a crude guy, I only talk about the deal." Song Han pushed up his glasses, made Chenze Yue sit down and clapped his hands. Female assistant brought over 4 portions of food. 2 thick slices of luncheon meat for each person, along with 2 slices of bread. Chenze Yue skewered the luncheon meat with her fork, looking at me with utter disdain. "This is a premium item from Spam. In your entire life, you've probably never eaten something this good. Young Master Song is bestowing this upon you. Why aren't you saying thank you yet?" I glanced at her, as if looking at an idiot. Getting all high and mighty over eating canned food, talk about having no world experience. Saying that, I reached behind me and pulled out a can of iced cola emitting cold vapor. What's the point of eating just dry bread? For such a big boss like young Master Song, making the guest prepare their own beverage is a bit too stingy, don't you think? The fork in Chenze Yue's hand instantly dropped into the plate. Staring dead at that can of cola, her throat rolled uncontrollably. This high-sugar happiness water. She had begged Song Han for it multiple times, but Song Han always said stock was tight and wouldn't let her drink it. Song Han forced himself to stay calm, telling Zhong to go to the supply room and get 3 cans of cola. Zhong declined and didn't drink, just as the assistant wanted to put them away. I snatched them over in one swift motion. "Oh my! Young Master Song is too polite. Since the old gentleman isn't drinking, I'll do it on his behalf. Let's not waste it." Saying that, I opened 2 cans of cola, holding one in each hand, tilting my head back to chug them down. After finishing, I even let out a loud burp. "Ah, refreshing. Got any more? Bring 2 more cans?" Song Han gripped his fork tightly, the corners of his eyes twitching. How was this negotiating a deal? This was pure unadulterated extortion. But in order to recruit me, he could only endure it forcefully. Song Han finally got straight to the point and spoke about that shark octopus. "The shark octopus in this sea area has killed many of our brothers who went out to scavenge. Yesterday's bizarre phenomenon between heaven and earth. Since you survived it, you must know its current status. I'd like to ask you to assist us in slaying it." I put down the cola and chewed on the luncheon meat. "Don't talk to me about feelings. Let's first talk about what benefits I can get." The corners of Song Han's mouth turned up slightly. Name whatever supplies you want. My original intention is to have a long-term cooperation with you, all the way until we head to the Xihuan Mountains. I stated bluntly, I want the alloy crankshaft along with sufficient food and fresh water. Anything else is just empty words. Hearing this, Song Han nodded. Downstairs in the power distribution room, there is a broken diesel engine. Dismantling the crankshaft will take some time. As long as you are willing to cooperate, I guarantee you won't have to worry about food or drink. I agreed on the spot. Young Master Song is generous, happy cooperating. Now that I'm full, let's set out right away. Chenze Yue's eyes went wide. Don't you need time to digest first? I looked at her with a calm and teasing expression. It's just killing a half-dead fish, that's all. What is there to digest? Arriving at the 40th floor survivor work zone, Song Han arranged for over a dozen physically strong diving team members to follow me, but I shook my head, pointing at the two youngest, most cowardly man and woman in the corner, Chu Xin and Wang Ying. More people mean a bigger target, which easily alerts it. Just the two of them will go with me. The moment these words came out, the crowd erupted into chaos. A burly man stepped forward and barked angrily, "Kid, who do you think you're fooling by acting like a big shot? That shark octopus is incredibly fierce. Taking just 2 greenhorns down with you, do you think your life is too long? Don't drag them down as your scapegoats." I glanced at him and sneered, "You really are simple-minded, with nothing but muscle. Who would be stupid enough to go send themselves to death? This is called tactics, got it?" Zhongzhong let out a cold shout, and no one dared to say another word. Chu Xin and Wang Ying stepped out tremblingly, following me to change into diving suits. Arriving at the flooded area on the 25th floor of the building, I inspected the pneumatic spear gun. While Chu Xin and Wang Ying shrank onto the steps shivering, I instructed them, "Once we go down later, follow my commands for everything. Don't run around blindly, otherwise not even gods can save you." But these words became the final straw that broke the two of them. Chu Xin clutched his head and wailed, "I saw that monster with my own eyes. Rip our captain into 2 halves, with just the 3 of us. How is it possible to survive?" Wang Ying also cried, saying she didn't want to die. Looking at the two of them, I let out a helpless sigh. With this kind of mental fortitude, it's a miracle they've survived until now. However, this actually suited my intentions perfectly. I suddenly put on a solemn and tragic expression, strapping the spear gun onto my back. "The 2 of you, stay right here." The 2 of them were instantly stunned. Wang Ying spoke in disbelief, "Going down by yourself. Isn't that just suicide?" I straightened my back. With a determined gaze, I said, "Someone has to do it. If I don't enter hell, who will? For the survival of humanity, and for a glimmer of hope in this damn apocalypse, what does this little risk even matter?" Chu Xin and Wang Ying were completely moved, shame and admiration welling up in their hearts. Chu Xin wiped his nose. "Brother Lu, I'm going with you." Wang Ying also nodded along. "I'm going too." But I barked fiercely at them, "Nonsense. How old are you guys? You still have a great future ahead. Is it your turn to do this kind of life-risking stunt?" Chu Xin muttered in a low voice. "But Brother Lu, you aren't old either." I let out a weathered, roaring laugh, looking up at the ceiling. Back in the day, I traveled north and south, did leg presses on train tracks, and drank water straight from the toilet. My experiences are not something you can compare to. Finishing my words, I put on the respirator and leaped into the icy seawater without looking back, leaving only Chu Xin and Wang Ying crying and shouting at the edge. "Brother Lu, you must come back alive." Meanwhile, underwater, I shook my head and complained. As expected, young people are really easy to fool, because I didn't plan on killing the shark octopus at all. I just wanted to find a place to farm my fishing attempts, and grab some random things to fake it along the way. I bypassed to the outdoor air conditioner platform at the back of the Song Corporation building. This place was a blind spot, so no one would discover me. Subsequently, I swapped out the God-tier fishing rod and began fishing. But for 8 consecutive times, everything fished up was just random junk. Only a pack of biscuits and an apple were edible. My mental state was about to collapse. Gnashing my teeth, I muttered, "This is the last time. Please give me a good drop." The fishing line suddenly sank heavily. I thought it was trash again, but a sense of heaviness came through. This thing seemed to be a living creature, biting the hook tightly and shaking its head crazily. I instantly got pumped up, tensing my muscles to engage in a tug-of-war with it. 5 or 6 minutes later, The fishing rod went light, and with a splash, a pinkish-white light ball broke through the water and landed on the platform. It turned out to be a pink dolphin only the length of an arm. Its entire body was pinkish-white, its skin smooth as jade, and right in the center of its rounded forehead grew a spiral single horn the length of a finger. Its watery large eyes looked at me innocently. The system prompted that this was a juvenile deep-sea dragon dolphin. It is evolution capable. Its current state is life tier, but its potential is ability tier. The single horn on its head can pierce through steel plates, and its underwater top speed is 30 knots. Once it reaches adulthood, it can control the climate and become the overlord of a water domain. I was overjoyed, poking the little dragon dolphin's forehead. Holy crap, a divine beast. I named the little dragon dolphin Xiaobai. Xiaobai actually became extremely close to me, even using its snout to rub against my crotch. I hurriedly pushed it away. Hey, are you a male or female kid acting like a pervert right off the bat? Xiaobai's eyes turned red with grievance. I had no choice but to comfort Xiaobai, and its mood instantly changed from stormy to sunny, its tail wagging like a propeller. Seeing that it was getting late, I pointed toward the seawater below. Xiaobai, go catch that octopus or a shark for me. Xiaobai blinked its eyes, and with a whoosh, it turned into pink lightning and plunged into the water. In less than 5 minutes, it broke through the water, carrying an octopus as tall as a person in its mouth, while its back also carried a completely dead great white shark. It tossed the prey right to my feet, holding its head high to beg for praise. I gasped a cold breath. This size gap compared to its combat power is simply insane. I cut off an octopus tentacle and a shark fin, then slashed several holes in my diving suit, kicked the carcasses back into the sea, and instructed Xiaobai, you eat the remaining meat. After eating, go hide near my boat. Without my command, you are not allowed to come out. Xiaobai rubbed against my palm and dragged the prey to dive into the deep sea. Meanwhile, at the exact same time, on the top floor of the Song Corporation building, Chenze had long grown impatient. Mocking Song Han, it has already been 4 hours. That bumpkin is probably dead down there. You're the only foolish one still waiting. Song Han's brows were tightly furrowed, and he was losing confidence in his heart as well. At this moment, Zhang spoke up. This old man cannot see through him, but the confidence he showed before. Leaving wasn't faked. Perhaps he really has a trump card. On the other side, Zhou Sheng and Wang Ying had waited for 4.5 hours in the flooded area, thinking that I was dead for sure. Just as they were about to go find the manager, the sound of bubbles suddenly came from the water surface behind them. My head burst out abruptly, panting heavily. Don't shoot! Guys, it's me, your big brother. I brought them back to the 40th floor survivor gathering area. At this moment, the atmosphere here was tense to the absolute limit. Someone was wiping tears, saying that I had gotten Zhou Sheng and Wang Ying killed, while others were clamoring to demand an explanation from Song Han. Chenze covered her nose in disgust. Young Master Song, this business deal is a total loss. That bumpkin most likely chickened out and ran away. Song Han's fist, which was crossed behind his back, clenched slightly. Could it be that he really misjudged the guy just at this moment? The rusty back door was slowly pushed open, and I walked out completely drenched. The diving suit had several massive holes torn into it, yet there was no one behind me. That burly man who had clashed with me earlier instantly rushed out, grabbing my collar and roaring, "You with the surname Liu. Where are those 2 kids?" Everyone else reacted as well. He returning alone must mean I abandoned Zhou Sheng and Wang Ying as bait. The angry emotions instantly spiraled out of control. Just as the burly man's fist was about to smash down, Song Han said coldly, "Forget it. Just consider it that I was blind." But right at the exact split second before the fist landed, with a loud bang, the back door was slammed open. Zhou Sheng and Wang Ying rushed in while carrying the octopus tentacle and the shark fin, shouting loudly, "Stop it! What right do you have to lay a hand on my brother Liu?" Everyone was stunned on the spot, while I unhurriedly straightened my collar. Pointing at the octopus tentacle on the ground, I said, "This is an octopus tentacle." Then pointing at that piece of shark fin, I sneered while looking toward the burly man, "And this is you." Hearing this, the burly man was instantly bewildered. "This is me." I nodded with a straight face. "Yeah, an absolute piece of a trash. Who else could it be but you?" Someone in the crowd couldn't help but burst out laughing. The burly man's face turned the color of pig liver, his fists clenching until they cracked. But looking at the severed limbs of the giant octopus on the ground, he didn't even dare to fart. Who would dare mess with a ruthless guy capable of taking down this kind of monster? Zhongzhong squatted down to inspect the severed remains, nodding as he said, "This meat is tough and firm, carrying a fierce aura. These are precisely the traits of the shark octopus." As his words fell, the entire place erupted in excitement. Everyone began to revere me like a deity. Chenze Yue's eyes went wide, covering her red lips in utter disbelief. To think that an ordinary-looking guy like me could actually solo kill the shark octopus. But I stepped forward and patted Zhou Sheng and Wang Ying on their shoulders, saying with a humble face, "Actually, I just got lucky. If it weren't for the two of them, risking their lives to draw the monster's attention, and creating an opening for me, it would have been impossible for me to succeed." Zhou Sheng and Wang Ying were instantly dumbfounded. The two of them had clearly peed their pants at the corridor entrance. But before they could even explain, they were surrounded by the crowd and praised as heroes. I nodded in satisfaction. Whoever wants empty fame can have it. I only want real tangible benefits. Song Han was overjoyed and took me upstairs to discuss the reward. Suddenly, a look of difficulty appeared on his face. "The structure of that diesel engine is too complex. Dismantling the crankshaft requires specialized tools and time. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to wait one more night." Saying that, he clapped his hands, and 4 hot gold medal female masseuses walked in, holding essential oils and towels in their hands. Song Han gave an ambiguous smile. "Tonight you should just relax well here. First thing tomorrow morning, the crankshaft will be presented with both hands." I sneered in my heart. This old fox Song Han wants to use sugar-coated bullets to soften me up and slowly assimilate me. The me from the previous life might have been tempted, but now I merely feigned agreement. Since young Master Song is being so polite, then it would be rude of me to decline. Once it gets dark, I'll steal the crankshaft and bail. Let's see who can stop me. As night fell, the fine rain drifted like silk. Chenze and Chu Xin, riding on that inflatable raft, finally arrived at the Song Corporation building. The two of them were completely drenched, looking gaunt and emaciated. After the guards searched them and confirmed they carried no weapons, they let them inside. The moment they entered the main gate, a wave of warmth rushed over them. A bonfire was lit in the lobby, and someone was roasting meat. That aroma of seafood and meat made the two salivate wildly. A survivor handed over 2 skewers of grilled octopus. "You guys have great luck. The moment you arrive, you catch a bonus meal. This is the prey brought back by the big hero in our building, Lufan." Chenze and Chu Xin devoured the food wolfishly, but when they heard my name, the two of them were instantly struck by lightning. Towering rage ignited even deeper in Chenze's eyes. He probably never imagined in his wildest dreams that I would ditch them to enjoy a life of luxury all by myself. Meanwhile, inside the luxury suite on the 48th floor at this very moment, I was lying on a large bed wearing a loose bathrobe. Just as I was enjoying the massage from the 4 beautiful masseuses, a knock on the door suddenly echoed. Chenze Yue entered wearing a purple hip-hugging skirt, black stockings, and red-bottomed high heels. Her exquisite makeup covered up her exhaustion, and her peach blossom eyes were filled with coquettish charm. Closing the door, she sat down beside me, saying flirtatiously, "Before my eyes were blind, and I offended Mr. Liu. I hope a great man like you won't hold a grudge against a lesser person." I looked down at her hand, grinning widely. "Miss Shen, are you asking me to help lay some pipe?" Chenze Yue's fingers froze abruptly. She probably cursed me thousands of times in her heart. Yet she still suppressed her anger forcefully, saying in a strained, high-pitched voice, "Song Han is unreliable. He promised to take me to the Shihuan Mountains, yet he keeps stalling. I want to ask you to help me. I'll help you get the alloy crankshaft, and you take me along with you. How about it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Trading 1 ticket on my boat for just 1 single part. Aren't I taking too much of a loss?" Chenze Yue's body went soft as she leaned against me. But with a quick dodge, I leaped off the bed. She lunged into empty air, sprawled on the bed with a face full of confusion. I pulled on my tactical pants, looking at her with utter disdain. Wanting to benefit from me without giving up any goods. "Isn't that a bit too cheap of a deal for you?" Chenze Yue was so pissed she almost passed out, but I grabbed her arm in one swift motion. "Cut the crap and answer 2 questions for me. If you can answer them, I'll consider taking you along." Following that, I learned 2 crucial pieces of information. The power supply room was on the east side of the 49th floor, guarded by sentries. The medium-sized passenger ship of the Song Corporation, the Ocean Voyager, was currently sunk 150 kilometers north-northwest of the Shihuan Mountains. That area is covered in heavy fog all day long. Electronic equipment malfunctions, and rescue teams don't dare to approach. Learning all of this, I was overjoyed in my heart. The materials from a shipwreck are precisely the perfect loot for upgrading my hull and constructing survival facilities. I immediately made Shen Qingyue take me to the power supply room. She used a lie to trick the guards, saying young Master Song wanted them to inspect the wiring. Seeing that it was a big star, the guards immediately ran downstairs, and I took the opportunity to slip into the power supply room, lifting the dust cover. That broken diesel engine hadn't been dismantled at all. Song Han was indeed stalling for time. I pulled out my crowbar, and as the heavy alloy crankshaft was forcefully pried off, I also conveniently looted a few high-voltage ignition coils and metal bearings, covering the dust cloth back up. I brought Shen Qingyue back to the room and began packing up the supplies. I stuffed the water-canned food and parts into a backpack and threw it to her. Caught off guard, Shen Qingyue staggered from the impact, staring with wide eyes. "It's so heavy. I have to carry it." I rolled my eyes at her. "What, you want a free ride? Wanting to hitch a ride on my boat without doing a single bit of work?" She gnashed her teeth in anger, but could only swallow her resentment and follow behind me carrying the backpack. Taking advantage of the guard shift change, the two of us dashed along the back door passage down to the 25th floor cargo bay. Outside, a wild storm was raging, and the drainage outlets were splashing water everywhere. Shen Qingyue was drenched in sweat from exhaustion. Looking at the pitch-black sea surface, her voice trembled. "There's no boat. How are we going to leave?" I revealed a confident smile. "Don't worry. I've already arranged everything long ago." I hid a spare kayak in the diving corridor up ahead. A two-person one in the room is just perfect. Saying that, I took the backpack over. "Give the bag to me. You go drag it over here." Hearing that there was a kayak, Shen Qingyue's eyes instantly lit up. She bolted right toward that room, but the moment she pushed open the door and looked, the room was completely empty. Forget a kayak. There wasn't even a broken wooden plank. She instantly realized she had been tricked. Running back toward the cargo bay like crazy, she screamed, "Lu Fan!" But by the time she rushed back to the cargo bay, the platform was already completely empty. I was long gone and out on the sea at this very moment. I was lying on Xiao Bai's back, holding tightly onto its sides, listening to the angry curses behind me. I shook my head. This dumb woman really believes anything. I patted Xiao Bai's forehead. "Xiao Bai, full speed ahead. Let's go back to the boat to install the engine." Xiao Bai let out a cheerful cry, flicking its tail, carrying me as it sliced through the waves, disappearing into the vast night. On the top floor of the Song Corporation building, Shen Qingyue rushed in barefoot, crying and shouting to Song Han. "That bastard lied to me, stole the alloy crankshaft, and ran away." The pencil in Song Han's hand instantly snapped into two pieces. He fiercely rushed to the floor-to-ceiling window. Out on the sea, that wooden boat of mine had already disappeared without a trace. And right at this moment, Zhongzhong pushed open the door and entered. Young Master Song 2 survivors came to the 40th floor. They claim to be Mr. Lu's relatives and have been clamoring to see you. Chenze and Chu Xin were brought into the meeting room. The moment they saw Song Han, they immediately began to fawn. "Young Master Song, I am Lu Fan's brother, Chenze. She is Chu Xin, the woman Lu Fan loves the most. We specifically came to seek refuge with him," Song Han said coldly. "Why should I believe you just for a bite to eat? I've seen plenty of people call a dog their father." The two got anxious, hurriedly saying Lu Fan has a tear mole at the corner of his left eye and on the inner side of his right wrist. There is a cashew-shaped red birthmark. This is something only those close to him would know. Song Han narrowed his eyes. He had seen my tear mole, and he had also faintly caught a glimpse of the birthmark on the wrist. It seemed what the two said was true. He said indifferently, "What a bad coincidence. He just left. He even swindled away the supplies from my place. Since that's the case, you two will have to pay off his debt."